There is a special, gut-wrenching humiliation in being late to your own husband's funeral. The world expects the widow to be the centerpiece of the grief, poised and tragic in the front row. Instead, I was in the back of a town car, stuck in a traffic jam caused by an overturned lumber truck. My fists clenched so tight my nails left half-moon marks on my palms. The man I had loved for 45 years was lying in a church a mere 5 miles away, and I was missing his final send-off because of 2x4s scattered across the interstate. When we finally screeched to a halt outside St. Ignatius, the hearse was already gone. The guests were inside. I could hear the faint, mournful drone of the organ. I scrambled out of the car, my heart thudding a frantic, shameful rhythm. And that's when I saw her. Huddled in the stone archway of the church door, soaked from the rain, was a girl. She couldn't have been more than 16. Her clothes were threadbare, her sneakers caked with mud, but it was her eyes I will never forget. They were red-rimmed, swollen from crying, and they held a depth of sorrow that mirrored my own. She was staring at Jerome's name on the funeral program tacked to the door, and she was weeping as if her entire world had ended. Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching, whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in Australia, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France. I want to know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. I stood frozen on the church steps, the rain misting around me. I stared at the weeping girl. The girl looks up. Our eyes meet for a charged second before the girl turns and flees around the side of the church. For a moment, I was paralyzed. The organ music swelled from inside, a call to my duty, to my public grief. But this girl, her private, raw agony was a magnet. "Wait," I called out, my voice hoarse. But she was gone, vanished into the damp hedges lining the church property. I stood there, torn in two. My place was inside, next to the polished cherrywood casket that held my Jerome. But something about that girl's face, the sheer, undisguised devastation, it was a siren's call. Taking a shaky breath, I pulled the heavy church door open and stepped into the dim, incense-scented air. All eyes turned to me, filled with pity and unspoken judgment. I was late, but as I walked down the aisle, all I could see was the ghost of that girl's heartbroken face. The priest speaks, but his words are muffled, distant. My eyes scanned the congregation, but I was not really seeing them. I'm searching the stained glass windows for an answer. The surface was a beautiful, blurry nightmare. I said the right words, accepted the condolences, held my son, Peregrine's hand, but my mind was a revolving door of questions. Who was she? Why was she crying for my husband? Jerome was a kind man, a retired history professor, a man of quiet routines. He volunteered at the library, for heaven's sakes. What connection could he possibly have to a homeless teenager? A cold, sick feeling began to uncoil in my stomach, a feeling that the solid ground of my 45-year marriage was shifting into treacherous sand. The reception after the funeral, held in my beautiful, art-filled home, well-dressed guests mingle, speaking in hushed tones. I moved through the crowd like an automaton. My home, usually a place of light and laughter, felt like a museum of a life I was no longer sure I understood. I poured tea, accepted casseroles, and listened to stories about Jerome, the brilliant professor, the devoted father, the loyal friend. Every story felt like a brick being placed on my chest, because with every kind word, the image of that girl's face grew sharper, more accusing. I found myself staring at Jerome's favorite armchair, the one by the fireplace where he'd read his leather-bound histories. It was empty, and for the first time, it felt like a question, not just a fact. My son Peregrine, in his 40s, approaches me, his face etched with concern. "Mom, are you okay? You've been distant all day," Peregrine asked. I forced a smile. "I'm just tired, dear. It's a lot," I said. "I know. It's unreal. He was the best," my son added. The best. The words echoed in the hollow space inside me. Was he? A secret once imagined is a weed that grows faster than any truth. Was he the best man I knew? Or was there a part of him, a hidden, shadowed part that I never knew? I couldn't ask Peregrine. I couldn't voice this terrifying doubt, not to my son, not on this day. The secret, for now, was mine alone, and the girl, the key to it, was out there in the cold. The next morning, I went to the local library where Jerome volunteered. I checked on Marnie, the head librarian, and an old friend. The library. It was Jerome's sanctuary. If he had a connection to that girl, perhaps it started here. Marnie, her own eyes red from crying, hugged me tightly. "Oh, Lorraine, we're all just lost without him," she whispered. I took a steadying breath. "Marnie, this might sound strange, but did you ever see Jerome talking to a young girl, teenager, thin, maybe looking a little down on her luck?" Marnie's face changes. The grief is joined by a flickering of recognition, then caution. "Well, there was a girl, came in most afternoons. Jerome would often help her with her schoolwork in the history section. He said she was bright but shy. He called her his little scholar. I think her name was Leora." Leora. The name was a key turning in a lock I didn't know existed. My Jerome had a little scholar? A girl he met regularly? A girl he never mentioned to me once in all our dinners, all our quiet evenings together? The cold feeling in my stomach turned to ice. I thanked Marnie and left, my mind reeling. He called her his. I was a woman possessed. I went straight to the basement, my basement, a clean, organized space. I was standing before a storage locker with Jerome's name on it. It's secured with a combination lock. It's the old Foot Locker where Jerome kept his university papers and childhood mementos. It was locked. He'd always said he lost the key years ago and it wasn't worth breaking. Now that felt like a lie. With a fierceness that surprised me, I found a crowbar in the garage. I didn't care about the splintering wood. I needed to know. The lid creaked open, releasing a scent of old paper and dust. On top of his diplomas and letters was a small, newer cardboard box. My hands trembled as I lifted it. I opened it. Inside are not the damning photos I feared, but something equally shocking. Stacks of graded high school essays on history topics, a tattered copy of Les Miserables, a new unused winter coat, and a sealed envelope with the name Leora written in Jerome's elegant script. Under it all was a legal-looking document. There were no love letters. No illicit photographs. Instead, there was evidence of a quiet, sustained kindness. But why the secrecy? My eyes fell on the document. It was a birth certificate. The father's name was blank. The mother's name was Anya Petrova. And the baby's name was Leora. My blood ran cold. This was more than kindness. This was a life. The house had never felt emptier. I made a simple meal, roast chicken and vegetables, the kind of thing Jerome loved. But as I sat one place at the table, the silence felt accusing. I thought of that girl, Leora, out there in the cooling night, probably hungry, certainly alone. I thought of the coat in the box, the books, the essays. Jerome hadn't just been kind, he had been committed. With the resolve that surprised me, I set a second place. I didn't know where she was, but I knew I had to find her. This wasn't just about answers anymore. It was about duty. It was about continuing what he started. I wrapped the extra plate in foil and put it in the refrigerator, a silent promise to myself and to him. I sat alone at the table, pushing food around the plate. I stared at the empty chair where Jerome used to sit, then at the new second empty chair. I ate alone that night, but for the first time since the funeral, I didn't feel alone. I felt purpose. I was no longer just a grieving widow. I was a woman on a mission. I would find Leora. I would bring her home, and I would serve her that meal. It was the least I could do for the man who had tried to save her and for the girl who had clearly loved him back. I started investigating over the next few days. I visited the local high school, posing as a relative, and learned Leora Petrova was a bright but troubled student who had dropped out months ago after her mother's death. I found the social worker assigned to Leora's case, and using my status as a concerned community member, I learned Anya Petrova was a Ukrainian immigrant with no family in the country. Leora had aged out of the system and disappeared. I went to the corner where Jerome bought his coffee every morning. The barista remembered him often buying a second coffee and a pastry for a sad-looking kid. With every piece of the puzzle, my heart broke and mended itself in a new way. This wasn't a story of betrayal. It was a story of rescue. Jerome had found a brilliant orphan girl falling through the cracks of the world, and he had quietly, secretly, been trying to catch her. He was buying her food, tutoring her, giving her books. He was trying to save her, and he had never told me. The question was no longer, who is she, but why didn't he trust me with this? But a more pressing question emerged. Where was she now? The social worker mentioned a place, a known spot under a highway overpass where kids sometimes stayed. My search was narrowing. The trail of kindness was leading me straight to her. Nighttime. Under a highway overpass, known as a place where homeless youth sometimes sleep. I, dressed in simple, dark clothes, approached cautiously. She sees a small, huddled form wrapped in a blanket next to a shopping cart. The social worker had mentioned this place. My heart hammered against my ribs as I walked towards the underpass, the city lights reflecting on the damp concrete. It was her, Leora. She was shivering, trying to read a battered book by the light of a dying flashlight. She looked up, her eyes wide with fear, ready to run. I held up my hands, showing I was no threat. "Leora," I said softly. "My name is Lorraine. I was Jerome's wife." The girl's face crumbles. She didn't run. She just stared, fresh tears welling in her famous red-rimmed eyes. "He's really gone, isn't he?" Leora asked. In that moment, all my doubts, my fears, my hurt feelings evaporated. I was looking at a child, a heartbroken, lonely child who had just lost the only person who cared about her. I knelt down, ignoring the grime on the pavement. "Yes, sweetheart. He's gone. But I'm here, and I have a warm meal for you at home," I said. A few days after Leora moved into the guest room, Peregrine came over for a talk. He stood in the living room while Leora hovered nervously in the doorway to the kitchen. Mom, this is insane, Peregrine said. It's been a week. She can't just live here indefinitely. We know nothing about her. What about her family? What about her past? We know she was important to your father. We know she has nowhere else to go. That's enough for me, I said in a calm but sharp tone. Dad had a soft heart. He was always bringing home strays, but this is different. This is a person, a legal responsibility. What if she's using you, Mom? What if she's after something? He said. Leora, hearing this, flinches and tries to leave. I stopped her. Leora, wait. Perry, look at her. Does she look like a master criminal to you? She's a child. Your father saw her brilliance and her potential. He wanted to protect that. How can we do any less? By letting the proper authorities handle it. Social services, a foster home, Peregrine hissed. I aged out of the system. There is no foster home. My voice trembling but clear. A heavy silence fell. Peregrine looked at Leora, truly seeing her desperation for the first time. I'm not a criminal. I mean no harm, Leora said. It was the first time Leora had spoken up for herself in front of Peregrine. Her quiet courage filled me with fierce pride. This wasn't the broken girl from under the bridge anymore. This was Jerome's scholar finding her voice. She stays, Peregrine. This is my home, and she is welcome here. She is family. Peregrine looked from my determined face to Leora's vulnerable one. The anger drained from his posture, replaced by a weary confusion. I just don't want you to get hurt, Mom, he said worriedly. I know, dear, but the only thing hurting me right now is the thought of turning her out. Peregrine nods slowly, not in agreement, but in temporary acceptance. He leaves without another word. I turned to Leora, who was crying silent tears of relief and fear. That night, I lay in bed, thinking about family. It wasn't just blood. It was a choice. It was showing up. It was standing in the storm for someone, even when it meant facing the gale yourself. I had chosen Leora, and in that choice, I found a piece of myself I thought I'd lost with Jerome. The courage to love unconditionally. In the kitchen, later that night, Leora is sitting at the table, clean and wearing one of my soft sweaters. She's cradling a mug of hot chocolate. I sat opposite her, listening. She told me everything, how her mother, Anya, had cleaned offices, including the one in the building where Jerome had his professor's office. How Jerome had found a young Leora reading in the hallway after hours and had started lending her books. How he became a mentor, a friend. When Anya died suddenly of an aneurysm, Jerome was the only one who noticed Leora was gone. He'd been searching for her for months, leaving notes at the library, buying her coffee in hopes she'd return. Leora said in a small voice, "He found me 2 weeks ago, under the bridge. He was so angry, but not at me, at the world. He gave me this." She hands me the sealed envelope from the box. I opened it with trembling fingers. It's a letter from Jerome. My dearest Leora, if you are reading this, I have failed in my promise to you. I was going to tell Lorraine everything this weekend. I was a coward, afraid she would not understand. But she has the kindest heart of anyone I have ever known. Find her. Show her this letter. My home is your home. You are the daughter we never had,
Be brave, my little scholar. I wept. I wept for this girl's loss, for my husband's secret kindness, and for my own foolishness in ever doubting him. He wasn't keeping a secret from me. He was protecting a scared girl until he could find the right words, and his heart had given out before he could say them. Peregrine came to check on me, his arms crossed, his face a storm of confusion and anger. I don't understand, Mother. You brought a homeless girl into our home? Based on a letter from a grieving, possibly confused old man? She is not just a homeless girl, Perry, I snapped. She was important to your father. He wanted to help her. And he didn't tell us? Why? It doesn't make sense, Mom. This is insane. What do we really know about her? Peregrine said. The unity we had at the funeral was shattered. Peregrine saw a potential gold digger, a complication, a stain on his father's memory. I saw a legacy. I saw the living embodiment of my husband's compassion, and I would not turn my back on it. For the first time since Jerome's death, I felt a clear, sharp purpose. I had to arrange a DNA test not to prove paternity, but to reassure Peregrine and to see if Leora has any other family. The results come back weeks later. There is no relation to Jerome. But the test also reveals that Leora has a living aunt, her mother's sister, still in Ukraine. The results were a relief in many ways. It confirmed what I already felt in my heart. Jerome's love for Leora was purely born of kindness, not obligation. But it presented a new crossroads. We found her aunt, a woman named Oksana, through the embassy. She was overjoyed, having searched for her sister and niece for years. She wanted Leora to come home. I had a choice: hold on to this girl who had become so precious to me, or give her a chance at a family, a real home, with her own blood. I sat with Leora in the garden explaining about her aunt. She wants me to come? She asked with tears in her eyes. My own eyes glistening. Yes, my dear, she does. But the choice is yours. This will always be your home, too. Several months later, we drove Leora to the airport. Peregrine is there now, his stance softer. He helped Leora with her suitcase. He has come to accept her, seeing the genuine bond between her and I, his mother. The heart has a miraculous capacity to expand. In loving Leora, I hadn't replaced Jerome. I was honoring him. And in seeing that, Peregrine's heart had begun to open too. He saw her not as a threat, but as a testament to the father he so admired. Leora hugs Peregrine goodbye, then turns to me. We held each other tightly. Thank you, Lorraine, for everything, for finding me, Leora said. You are your mother's daughter, and you are Jerome's scholar, and you will always, always be my girl, I said. Now go. Be brave. Leora walks towards the security gate, turning to wave one last time. I and Peregrine stood together, waving back. We are not just a mother and son anymore. We are a family, changed and enlarged by a love we never knew was missing. I was late to my husband's funeral, but because I was late, I was right on time to find the last, most beautiful piece of his life. That homeless girl at the church door, with her red, grieving eyes, wasn't a secret. She was a gift. She taught me that family isn't always the one you're born with. Sometimes it's the one you find, shivering in the rain, and have the courage to bring inside. If this story resonated with you, please don't hesitate to like this video and subscribe to this channel so we can share more with each other. Please leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from.